You once thought you were losing because you weren't good enough, because you didn't have the right strategy, because your entries weren't perfect, because you lacked knowledge, experience, or a system strong enough. But then you studied, you took notes, ran tests, optimized every step. You became methodical, cold, precise, like a machine. And still, you lost. There were still moments when you didn't understand what had just happened. Why did you break your own rules? Why did you click that button, even though you knew you shouldn't? Why do you keep repeating the same mistake, unable to stop? And that's when the truth begins to surface. You're not losing because you're not good enough. You're losing because a part of you doesn't want you to win. Trading is not a battle between you and the market. It's a battle between two people inside you. One dreams of freedom, discipline, and success. The other is full of doubt, fear, and a longing to return to the familiar pain of your comfort zone. You can study every trading system, follow every checklist, enter every trade by the book. But if inside you there's still a boy who once believed that money is dangerous, still a girl who was taught that success is arrogance, still a human who learned to associate suffering with self-worth, then no system can save you from yourself. This video won't teach you where to place your stop loss. It won't talk about win rates, volume, or trend lines. It simply holds up a mirror you've been avoiding for far too long. If you've ever stared at a chart with your heart pounding, not from excitement, but from emotions crashing like waves, if you've ever held onto a losing trade as if you were holding your whole life together, if you've ever cried silently after a trading session and no one could understand why, then this isn't a trading video. This is a journey home. And the only person you need to defeat is not the market. It's the version of you that's still afraid of the light. I still remember that night. Nearly 3 a.m. Everyone was asleep. The woman I loved was upstairs, believing I was working hard for our future. My 6-year-old son, probably dreaming about our weekend picnic, had no idea. I had just wiped out the entire savings for his future education. I sat motionless in a cold room. A dim blue glow from 4 screens reflected off my face, but no longer revealed a person. Only a hollow shadow remained, staring blankly at the bleeding numbers. 1,982, 1,000 USDs. I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. There was nothing left to feel, only absolute emptiness, as if the human part of me had been drained out. I once thought I was a disciplined trader. I took pride in my rules, my journal, my process. But in that moment, everything I thought I knew shattered. I used to blame the market. I thought, it's just an unfair stop loss, a random spike. But it wasn't. The truth was much harder to swallow. I had set the trap for myself, not for the first time. And surely, not the last unless I faced the root cause. When your system can't save you from yourself, I had everything. A system back-tested for 12 straight months, a trading journal longer than a novel, a capital management process others begged me to teach them, and I still burned it all down in 2 hours. How did that happen? I started to realize something terrifying. A system doesn't protect you from your emotions. It only works when you're your best self, but some days you're not. Some days you didn't sleep enough. Some days you just fought with your wife. Some days you're lost, but still forcing yourself to stick to the plan. And on those days, no matter how good your system is, you will be the one to break it. Discipline isn't a superpower, it's a mask. We glorify discipline. Treat it like a shield against emotions and market chaos. But here's the truth. Discipline doesn't heal the cracks in your soul. You can't discipline away the fear of abandonment from your childhood. You can't follow the rules to erase a deep belief that you're unworthy. And the worst part is, we bring those wounds into every single click. When you lose a trade, it's not just money. It feels like rejection by the whole world. You stop being a trader and become the child who was scolded for doing something wrong. When a loss isn't a statistic, but an identity crisis. A losing trade, in theory, is just a negative number, but when your inner world is unstable, it becomes a blow to your identity. I'm such an idiot. Why do I always ruin everything? It's always me. Always me. I once sat frozen for 5 hours over a single nice 1-hour loss, not because of the money, but because I felt like a failure in life. That's when I realized I'm not trading the market, I'm trading my unhealed wounds. The cruel repetition. You think you're trading to make money, but look closely. You always trade at the wrong hour. You always break rules when emotions peak. You always hold losers because you can't handle losing. It's not random. You're repeating a familiar script, as if your subconscious wants to return to a pain it once knew, because sometimes familiar pain feels safer than unknown success. The mirror called the market. I used to think the market was a traitor. It tricked me, it trapped me, it mocked me. But no, the market is no one, it's just a mirror. And what did I see in it? A man afraid of losing control, a boy who never forgave himself, a version of me never accepted, always trying to prove something or self-punish. Stop, not to exit a trade, but to exit the loop. The turning point doesn't come from a magical setup, not from a plus 10R day. It comes the moment you dare to ask why you keep repeating the same tragedy. The day you stop asking, how can I avoid losing, and start asking, why do I need to lose? That moment is the foundation of freedom. You don't need more discipline, you need healing. We're taught that to succeed in trading or in anything, we must be more disciplined. No mistakes, no weakness, no emotional interference, but no one tells you this. When you're trading from a place of pain, discipline is just a coat of paint on a crumbling wall. You can try to control your behavior. Try to meditate 15 minutes every morning. Try to reread your rules before each session. But if inside you is a mind screaming with insecurity, if inside you still lives an abandoned child who was never seen or validated, then no checklist will save you from the impulses of a wounded ego. The issue isn't weak willpower, it's an overwhelmed nervous system. Pause for a moment and look deeper. You think you lack grit, that you're not persistent enough? The truth may be simpler. Your brain has lost its capacity to regulate after too many small shocks. A losing trade isn't just monetary loss, it's a neurological stressor that unknowingly triggers survival mode. Repeat this cycle hundreds of times, and your brain becomes hypersensitive uncertainty, unable to maintain neutrality. At that point, you don't need more discipline. You need space for nervous system recovery. Stillness, the only thing dopamine can't control. In a world where everything overstimulates you, social media, trade signals, Telegram chats, 24/7 analysis YouTube channels, you barely have a moment to breathe, let alone hear yourself. You think you're addicted to trading? No. You're addicted to doing something to escape your anxiety, but it's in the doing nothing that you finally see what's actually hurting you. You need to turn off the charts, not to rest, but to reconnect. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is to shut down all your screens. No charts, no news, no new strategies. Just silence. Space. Healing. You don't have to quit trading. You just need to stop long enough to step out of the loop. Dopamine, entry, disappointment, craving again. Because only when you step out of the arena will you realize the addiction isn't to the market. It's to the fear living inside you. The market doesn't destroy you. It reflects what's already broken. You once blamed the market for wiping out your account. You once hated yourself for losing control. But look closer. It wasn't the market that made you lose control. It wasn't the loss that broke you. It was the fractured part of you that had always been there. And the market merely reflected that fracture brutally, truthfully. You don't need to be stronger. You need to embrace the part of you that's weak, the part you've been hiding behind discipline. Old beliefs, the unexamined verdicts. Do you know what beliefs you're trading with? To have money, you must suffer. Success only comes after pain. I'm not as good as others. I don't deserve an easy life. These sound logical, but they're inherited beliefs from places you never chose. Maybe from childhood, from family, from an environment where success was tied to sacrifice and money seen as something dirty. If those beliefs are never questioned, you will unconsciously sabotage yourself every time you're close to winning. Healing isn't fake positivity. It's the courage to face truth. You don't need to think more positively. You don't need to master your emotions like a robot. You just need to be honest with yourself. Why do I overreact to a losing trade? Why do I feel guilty when I win? Why do I feel empty even after a 5R gain? These questions may hurt, but they are the doorway to freedom. Redefining discipline, it's not control, it's connection. Maybe we misunderstood discipline all along. Discipline isn't forcing yourself to do unpleasant things at all costs. It's reconnecting with what truly matters so deeply that no one has to force you. When you're truly aligned with your highest self, discipline isn't a struggle. It becomes a natural part of who you are. You're not broken, you're just not healed. Let me remind you, if today you're deep in despair, you're not weak, you're not broken, you haven't failed. You're simply carrying too many layers of unprocessed pain. Trading didn't break you, it simply opened the door for you to finally see what needs healing. And if you're brave enough to walk through that door, you won't just become a better trader, you'll become a freer human being. When winning becomes a trap and the real reason you're afraid of success. It sounds crazy, but let me ask you this, seriously, are you afraid of success? Not the idealized version you picture. Not the scene where you're chilling on a beach, account deep in profits with no more life pressure. I'm talking about real success. You're consistently profitable. You have a reliable system. Trading no longer stresses you out. You live with freedom, options, and no need to run anymore. That kind of success, are you truly ready for it? The trap called winning. The first time I had a 9-trade winning streak, I didn't feel joy. I felt uneasy. Sounds ironic, right? I should have been celebrating, but deep inside, something began to stir. This can't last. A losing streak is coming. Better pull out now, play it safe. And then I ruined everything. I suddenly increased my position size. I ignored signals because I was on fire. I broke my plan just to protect the gains. In just 2 days, I wiped out the best winning streak of my career. Why do you sabotage your own success? Not because you're stupid, but because your mind was never trained to handle being happy. There's a psychological mechanism called the upper limit problem. Simply put, you have a hidden ceiling for how good you believe life is allowed to feel. And when you exceed that ceiling, even temporarily, your mind will do whatever it takes to bring you back to the familiar safe zone. For many people, that safe zone isn't comfort. It's anxiety, struggle, conflict, constant battling, because that's what you grew up knowing. You fear failure, but you also fear success. You think you're only afraid of losing money, but really, you're also afraid of what comes with winning. Responsibility, pressure to maintain it, expectations from others, the fear of what if I lose it all? And there's a deeper fear, one few dare admit. If I succeed, what do I keep fighting for? When trading stops being a battle, when it's no longer an emotional outlet, you're left with silence, with stillness, with yourself. Success is a state to be practiced, not a result. We often think, once I succeed, I'll feel peace. But the truth is the opposite. You must learn to tolerate success so you don't destroy it. I once made 30R in a single month, and right after, I sabotaged trade after trade as if punishing myself for winning too easily. It felt like a part of me couldn't accept. How could I make that much with just a few clicks? Do I really deserve this? I'm bound to pay for this somehow. And I did. I created the punishment myself. Old memories create new limits. Think back to your past. What kind of environment did you grow up in? Did anyone teach you how to accept success without fear? Did anyone celebrate your wins without saying, don't get cocky? Did anyone tell you you're worthy without adding, stay humble or you'll lose it? If not, you're carrying a distorted emotional map that's leading you around the same self-sabotaging maze. Victory means nothing if you don't believe you deserve it. Here's what I've learned after 7 years of trading, 3 blown accounts and 2 rounds of therapy. Success without the belief that you deserve it will always be destroyed, one way or another, consciously or not. You'll overhold positions, enter reckless trades, feel empty even after gains, or create drama just to feel alive, because your mind cannot tolerate the feeling that everything is actually okay. The solution isn't control, it's identity realignment. You don't need a better strategy. You need to become someone who believes they deserve stability. Your identity, the way you see yourself, determines how you handle every result in trading. If you still think of yourself as someone who must work 10x harder than others, someone who can't hold on to success, someone who rises fast but always falls again, then you'll recreate that exact story, no matter what system you use. Breaking free from the invisible cage. To escape this trap, you don't need to change the market. You need to unlock a higher version of yourself, one that isn't afraid of peace, one that doesn't feel guilty when life goes well, one that can hold on to success without ruining it because it feels too easy. And the beautiful part is, that version of you, it's not someone else. It's always been inside you, just buried under layers of doubt. Trading isn't about strategy, it's about the identity you're living by. We all begin our trading journey with the same question: what strategy works? And then we enter the maze. Indicators, RSI, EMA, MACD, technical analysis, candlestick patterns, trend lines, volume profiles, even crowd psychology, game theory, Wyckoff, and order flow. We believe that if we study enough, know enough, practice enough, everything will eventually click. And for a while it seems to work. But then once again, you break your rules, you enter impulsively, you overhold losing trades, you spiral into self-blame, doubt, and exhaustion. That's when a different, much more dangerous question arises. Maybe I'm just not meant for trading. Maybe I'll never be able to control myself. Maybe I am the problem. Trading is a direct reflection of your identity. You think you're trading the market, but in truth, you're reliving yourself in every single click. If you're impatient in life, you'll exit trades prematurely. If you often compare yourself to others, you'll chase FOMO. If you carry feelings of inferiority, you'll force trades just to prove your worth. The chart doesn't know who you are, but it reflects you with brutal accuracy. You're not trading a strategy, you're trading the person you've become. A strategy is just a tool. It's like a vehicle, but you are the driver with all your habits, beliefs, wounds, doubts, and the way you handle emotions when things go wrong. You can be in a supercar, but if your mind is chaotic, your vision foggy, your hands trembling, you'll still crash into a wall. Your trading cycle mirrors your internal identity. Be honest. How many times have you promised yourself, starting tomorrow, I'll follow the rules? How many times have you rewritten your trading plan? How many times have you sworn you'd never revenge trade again? Yet you always circle back to the same old patterns, because the problem isn't the plan, it's the unconfronted self. You're not just trading with the chart, you're trading with your ego in failure, with your fear of being seen as incompetent, with your pain of being doubted by others. Who I used to be and how I traded like that. I used to be the one who had to prove they're worthy. That identity came from childhood. Always had to be better. Never allowed to make mistakes, never allowed to be weak. And I brought that exact identity into trading. Every winning trade was validation. Every loss was a stab at my self-worth. I wasn't trading to make money. I was trading to be acknowledged. But the market doesn't care about my ego. It only reflects me with raw, unfiltered truth. Identity shapes how you handle both success and failure. Someone who believes they're worthy will stay disciplined during wins, stay calm during losses, remain emotionally grounded through every trade. Someone who doesn't believe they're worthy will break rules as soon as they profit, self-punish when they're wrong, relive shame through every candlestick. No strategy can help here. Only restructuring your identity can break the loop. You don't need a new system. You need a new definition of self. I used to think once I trade consistently, I'll feel confident. But the truth is the opposite. Once you feel enough, you'll trade consistently, not because of money, but because you know who you are, what you need, that you have nothing left to prove. At that point, you trade from a place of peace, not to feel valuable, not afraid to lose your dignity. You no longer trade to find yourself. You trade as an extension of a self that's already whole. Your system isn't for making money, it's for maintaining identity. This is when you realize a trading system isn't the fastest path to wealth. It's a mechanism to protect you from lower versions of yourself, like morality, like sleeping early, eating well, exercising. It's the structure that preserves your highest self amid chaos. Trading is a journey back to yourself, not a climb to somewhere else. I used to think trading was about climbing, overcoming fear, limitations, challenges. Now I believe trading is a journey back to who you've always been, the version of you that doesn't need to hustle or perform, a person who knows their limits, grateful for their mistakes, at peace amid the noise of the market. That person isn't a super trader. They are simply you, once you're no longer driven by old, outdated identities. A final word and one powerful question. So before asking, what's the best strategy, ask this instead. Who am I when faced with uncertainty? And if that question shakes you, don't worry. You're on the right path. Because only when you dare to examine your current identity can you consciously choose a new one who no longer trades to find themselves, but trades as an expansion of a self already whole. Your body trades before your brain even notices. You think you trade with logic? You don't. You trade with your body before your brain even has a chance to analyze. I didn't believe this at first. I was the rational type, loved data, metrics, measurements. I used to laugh at the idea of intuition. I thought, just control your emotions and you'll be fine. But then came the days when I did everything right and still blew up my account in 3 hours. Not because I didn't know, but because my body had already entered survival mode before I could even think. 3 brains, 1 decision, neuroscience has shown. We don't just have 1 brain, we have 3. The reptilian brain, 500 million years old, only knows 3 responses: fight, flight, freeze. The mammalian brain handles emotions, memories, and connection. The human brain, logic, analysis, planning. You write your trading plan with the human brain. But you enter impulsive trades with the reptilian brain. Why? Because when you see that red candle crash down, your body thinks you're about to die. Heart races, palms sweat, breathing becomes shallow, and your rational brain shuts off like a fuse. You're not out of control. You're just trying to survive. I remember a trade last year. I entered a perfect short setup. The market snapped back and hit my stop loss in 2 minutes. And then, without thinking, I re-entered in the opposite direction. No setup, no logic. I just couldn't handle being wrong. I needed to get it back to restore the identity of a trader who's right. In that moment, I wasn't a trader. I was a scared child, a man afraid of losing control. It wasn't the market that destroyed me. It was my survival system, pulling the trigger before I could stop it. You're being run by a survival loop. Every time you hold a losing trade for no reason, enter a trade out of FOMO, exit profits too early out of fear of losing what you have, you're not making strategy errors. You're being driven by your nervous system. Your nervous system has linked red candles with danger, waiting with risk, rule following with the fear of missing out. Trading isn't stressful. Your body is the source of stress. Charts have no feelings. Candles don't know who you are. Markets don't hate you. All the stress you feel comes from your body reacting to the market as a threat. And if you don't retrain your nervous system, you could study 100 strategies and still fall into the same old patterns. Design your system not just for the brain, but for your nervous system. Here's what most traders miss. You can't run a complex system with a dysregulated nervous system. So you need to design a system that fits your physiological state. Simple, visual setups, clear rules that don't require split-second decisions, scheduled breaks to release dopamine, risk levels low enough not to trigger a threat response. The best system isn't the one with the highest returns. It's the one you can stick to, from a place of nervous system stability. You don't need to control emotions, you need to recognize them. One of the biggest mistakes is trying to suppress emotions, like pushing down a loaded spring. Instead, try naming them before they explode. I feel fear. I feel disappointed. I'm trying to prove something right now. When you recognize emotions, your nervous system calms. You regain control, and from there you choose your action instead of reacting. You just need to reconnect with your body. I used to ask, why can't I be like those pro traders? They're calm, disciplined, focused. And me? Impulsive, disoriented, spiraling from a single loss. Then I realized I wasn't bad. I was just trading from a nervous system that had never been restored. You're not broken. You're not undisciplined. You've just lost connection with your body, the very system meant to keep you alive and help you decide. The real path, trading alongside nervous system recovery. Once I shifted, I started to do breath work before each session, take walks after wins and losses, set a rule, no trading if my emotions hit 710 or higher, profits more consistent than ever. But more importantly, I stopped hating myself every time I lost. I stopped trading to punish myself. I now trade with clarity and compassion. In summary, you're not losing because you're not skilled. You're losing because no one ever taught you. Trading is a nervous system sport, not a logic puzzle. And if you want to level up, don't just optimize your strategy. Retrain your body so it no longer betrays you when stress hits. Rules, routines, and rhythms when discipline becomes identity, not obligation. Most of us start our trading journey with excitement. Every day feels like a new opportunity. Every breakout is a promise. Every 2-hour win feels like one step closer to financial freedom. But then things begin to spiral. You stop sleeping properly. Eating becomes random. Entries get impulsive. Emotions swing like M1 candles. And discipline, something you once thought you had, vanishes as if it never existed. The problem isn't your lack of knowledge. It's not a weak will either. The real issue is that you lack a structure that protects you from yourself. Discipline shouldn't rely on willpower, but on structure. Let's be honest. Have you ever said things like, next time I'll try harder. I just need to focus more. I'll remind myself to stick to the rules. If it were that easy, you wouldn't be here. Because willpower is a finite resource, and the more tired, stressed, sleep-deprived, hungry, or lonely you are, the faster it runs out. And when willpower runs out, you default to instinct. You break plans, revenge trade, act unconsciously. So no, you don't need more determination. You need rules, routines, rhythms, a structure that doesn't depend on emotions. Rules, boundaries that protect you from self-sabotage. A trading system is not just a strategy. It's a set of rules written when you're clear-headed to protect you when you're not. The clearer the rule, the easier to follow. Max 2 entries per day. Stop loss is always placed, never adjusted. No increasing size after a loss, no MT4 after 10 p.m. You don't write rules to imprison yourself, you write them to free yourself. Routines, anchors that keep you grounded. Ever notice that your best trading days often follow stable behaviors? You woke up on time, you meditated for 5 minutes, you had a full breakfast, you reviewed your journal. These small things aren't for show, they're how your mind enters the right state. Routine doesn't have to be complex, it just needs to be stable, repetitive, intentional. Rhythms, the foundation of mental safety. We are rhythmic beings. Heartbeat, breath, sleep, emotions. Break that rhythm, and your body loses balance, brain sounds alarm, trading errors, emotional collapse. So ask yourself, what time of day do I trade best? How long should I rest between trades? Which week of the month do I usually struggle most? Find your own rhythm and stick to it. You don't need to be disciplined like others. You just need to live in rhythm with yourself. You can't control emotions, but you can control the environment. Put a drug addict in a bar, and even the strongest discipline won't help for long. Likewise, if you stare at charts 24/7, turn on all signal notifications, join emotional group chats, watch 10 YouTube channels a day, that environment will destroy your inner structure. Want consistency? Rebuild your environment. Turn your trading station into a ritual space where you enter with clarity, not chaos. Discipline is a byproduct of a regulated nervous system. When your nervous system is calm, you don't have to force discipline. You naturally wait patiently, see more clearly, avoid rushing, stay detached from wins and losses. You become the type of person who trades well, not someone trying to force discipline while emotionally unstable. Create structure to protect the best version of you. I used to trade on impulse. It felt like driving without brakes, sometimes flying, sometimes crashing. Now I build structure. No trading in the morning, read journal instead, midday meditation for 10 minutes, rest if stressed, no charts at night, reflect on the day, weekly reviews, not just stats, but mindset. The result? I still lose trades, but I no longer lose myself. True discipline is when you no longer try, because it's who you are. At first, you'll force yourself to follow rules. You'll write out routines. You'll set reminders for your rhythms. But over time, it becomes you. You can't not do the right thing because it's how you now live. At that point, you're no longer trying to be disciplined. You're a structured person, so your trading naturally reflects it. Final words. Trading is not a game for those with strong willpower. It's a journey for those who know where they're weak and build systems to prevent collapse. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be clear enough to write rules while you're calm, build routines while you're in control, maintain rhythms to keep yourself in peak state. Because when everything falls apart, it's the structure you return to. The inner mirror. Trading reflects the part of you you've been avoiding. Have you ever felt like you're not really trading anymore, but instead you're in a dialogue with a part of yourself that was never acknowledged, never healed? There are moments when I stare at the chart and I no longer see opportunity. I see fear. I see judgment. I see another version of myself waiting, ready to condemn me if I'm wrong. The market says nothing, but you hear everything from within. The chart is just light, just the movement of supply and demand. But when you look at it, you start hearing inner voices. Don't screw this up again. If you fail this time, you really are worthless. If you can't recover this trade, then who are you? The chart stops being a chart. It becomes a scoreboard for your identity. And every green or red candle is no longer price, it's judgment. You think you're analyzing the market, but you're actually analyzing yourself. Here's a cold truth. The market never beats you. You beat yourself by believing you're not good enough. I used to think I was being analytical. Fibonacci, RSI, supply-demand zones, volume. But the truth, I was searching for psychological validation for what I already wanted to believe. When I was afraid, I saw reversal signals. When I was greedy, I ignored divergence. When I was desperate, I clung to maybe this time's different. So the chart wasn't the market anymore. It became a mirror reflecting my biases, wounds, and buried beliefs. Your mind recreates old scripts through every click. If you grew up in an environment where mistakes were punished harshly, your worth was tied to achievement, love only came after obedience and success, then you'll bring that emotional map into the market. Trading becomes a stage to replay old scripts. Every losing trade feels like abandonment. Every win is an attempt to be loved. Every broken rule is an escape from the pressure to be perfect. You're not trading for money. You're trading for forgiveness from someone in your past. The more you try, the more you repeat the same mistakes. Because the problem isn't your strategy. It's your mind refusing to face the truth. You're not afraid of losing money. You're afraid of being seen as a failure. You're not afraid of a red trade. You're afraid of the memory of being scolded for doing it wrong. You're not afraid of blowing your account. You're afraid of losing the image of being worthy in the eyes of your parents or even yourself. So to avoid that emotion, you do everything. Overhold, click blindly, rationalize poorly, trap yourself in a loop of denial. Don't lack knowledge. You lack the courage to face yourself. You can study any system, trade 10 demo accounts, read every trading book, but if you never confront the shadow within, you'll always get pulled back to the same starting point. Trading is a mirror, and that mirror never lies. You can tell yourself you're a disciplined trader, but one piece of bad news and the truth surfaces. You can pretend you're okay, but once a trade goes 30 pips against you, your ego explodes. The real tragedy isn't losing, it's repeating without knowing why. Losing one trade? No big deal. Losing 100 trades? Still teachable. But losing for the same reason while still blaming the market? That's a tragedy. I lived in that loop for 4 years. I thought I was fighting the chart, but I was fighting a part of me that had never been healed. A part that believed, I always destroy good things. I'll never hold on to success. I deserve pain more than ease. The way out doesn't come from winning, but from awareness. Only when you admit that trading reflects the parts of you you've tried to hide, do you gain the power to choose a different response. Not avoidance, not suppression, but confrontation and conversation. Ask yourself, what is this loss making me feel? What's the real reason I took this trade? Is this emotion from the market or from an old wound I've ignored? From reflection to rebirth. When you view the market as a mirror, you stop seeing candles and start seeing yourself. You begin to trade less, but more consciously. Wait longer, but more peacefully. Make mistakes, but without self-torment. Because now you're not trading to find yourself. You've found yourself through trading. In summary, the market is not where you find answers. It's where you're forced to ask the right questions about yourself. And if you're brave enough to look, you'll see. Trading never destroyed you. It simply opened the door back to the real you, the one you've been running from all these years. I used to think discipline made life dull. I used to fear it, avoid it. And so I lived in what I called freedom, a chaos disguised in a shiny coat. Every morning I wanted to do something big, but I stayed curled up in bed for 15 more minutes, then 30. Every time I opened the chart, I told myself, today I'll be serious. But the moment a sudden pump appeared, I ditched my system and FOMO'd like an impatient child. I called it inspiration. I called it intuition. I called it trader's instinct. But in truth, it was just my ego in a suit playing the genius. It hated repetition. It looked down on rules. It craved the high, the $1,000 leap in one trade, the imaginary applause from someone who didn't even exist. And discipline? Discipline didn't make me feel special. It didn't make me feel smarter than anyone. It just quietly brought me back to simple, boring, and incredibly important actions. Executing trades according to plan. Shutting down on time, writing down the emotions that came up, meditating even when my mind was chaos, skipping a trade when the setup wasn't clear, even as my gut screamed to win it back. No one claps for that. No one admires silent consistency. But it's exactly those small things that create real results. I realized, discipline isn't a chain. It's the key that unlocks freedom. True freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. True freedom comes from doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, even when your emotions pull you toward the familiar. I remember the first time I held a losing trade and didn't cut it. I knew I should cut, but my fingers froze. I heard my heartbeat like war drums. My body trembled. My forehead was wet. I wasn't fighting the market. I was fighting a part of myself. The child within me, afraid to be wrong. The ego determined to hold on, to be right. The familiar voice, Doug, you can't lose again, you have to recover. And then I clicked. Cut loss. It wasn't just a trading decision. It was a moment of transformation. From that day on, I began to understand. Discipline isn't about being tough. It's a deep kindness toward yourself. You don't follow the system because you're mechanical. You follow it because you don't want to hurt yourself anymore, because you're tired of the cycle of self-destruction. And because you're mature enough to no longer need chaos just to feel alive. I no longer use discipline to force myself. I use it to protect myself. Like placing a fence around a flower garden. Placing a fence around a flower garden, not because I hate the outside world, but because I cherish the flowers within. You don't need discipline to be perfect. You need it to stop betraying what you truly want. And then one day, you'll realize you're sitting at the screen without anxiety. You've entered a trade without being pulled by emotion. You've stayed out of the market for a week because there was nothing worth trading, not because you became a robot, but because you no longer need the adrenaline to feel worthy. You're not trading to prove anything anymore. You're trading because you know who you are, and because you love the peace after each session more than the victory in the storm. Discipline doesn't change the market. It changes you, the one who shows up to the market every day, and when you change, the results change, and trading stops being a war, it becomes an art of presence. I once lived in a cage, not made of iron or steel, but made of emotions. A cage built from fear every time my account bled red. A cage built from greed when the market gave a taste of profit. A cage built from hope for that one big win to change my life. A cage built from regret every time I broke my rules and blamed myself afterward. That cage was always there. I thought I was free, but in truth, I was just running in circles inside the emotional prison I built myself. Trading didn't destroy me. I destroyed myself through unconscious reactions, undisciplined decisions, and a refusal to truly look at myself. But then something strange happened. When I began to choose discipline, not to force myself, but because I was simply too tired of suffering. When I chose to do the right thing, even when I wanted to do the wrong. When I chose to stay out, even when green candles tempted me. When I chose to shut the screen, even as my heart trembled with FOMO, I realized I was freeing myself. Discipline was no longer a chain. It became the key to unlock the emotional prison. It became the hallway leading me out of the psychological maze. When I chose discipline, I was no longer imprisoned by voices like, if you don't take this trade, you'll miss out. You just lost. Get it back now. This time will be different. I swear this breakout is real. I no longer had to believe anyone, not the market, not my emotions, only the system I chose and the version of myself I was becoming. You know what? Discipline is freedom. Freedom from greed. Freedom from fear. Freedom from needing to prove you're right. Freedom from the ego that wants to win more than it wants to live. Trading is just a mirror. It isn't merciful, but it is brutally honest. If you live with integrity, it reflects that back. If you live a lie, it strips you bare to the bone. I've seen traders cry in front of their screens. I've heard the silent screams as margin calls hit. I've lived the sleepless nights, clutching a glowing phone like a drug to the brain. I understand. I've been there. I am you. But now I'm different. Not because I'm better, but because I chose to become someone else. I chose discipline, not because I'm strong, but because I was once broken to the core. If you're trapped in the hell loop, win then lose, euphoria then guilt, expectation then disappointment, holding profits, holding losses, holding your breath, stop. Not to quit, but to transform. Don't trade to win anymore. Trade to survive. Trade to build identity. Trade to break free from the person you used to be. The system is the map. Discipline is the compass, but you must keep your hands on the wheel. Because in trading, no one will save you. No one can carry your pain. And no one can hand you freedom. Freedom comes when you make discipline your instinct. In summary, discipline is not a prison. Emotion is the real jail. Discipline is the escape route. It's the key, and only you can decide whether to use it. If you truly want to break through in trading, start within, not with a new strategy, but with a new version of you. Thank you for listening, and if any of this touched something in you, leave just one line. I choose freedom. Yes, I choose discipline, and start again today.